Okay, an important place for us to start when we talk about food is to talk about Adrian and my history with Roscoe and Daisy, because that's really where this whole journey started. Because actually, if you look back at the original two Bostons that opened up on Washington Street, there really was almost no food inside of it. And so basically, here's what happened. We had adopted Roscoe, and I drove a ridiculous amount of time down to Carbondale to pick him up and brought him home, and we had a dog, and it was great. And we didn't have any food for that dog. So Adrian and I got in the car with Roscoe, and we went to PetSmart to go and find out what kind of food Boston Terriers eat. Because when growing up, I knew my parents got different things, but I had done a little bit of research, so I was like moderately dangerous, but in retrospect I didn't know much at all. So go into PetSmart, go in the food aisle, and I didn't know this then, but PetSmart actually has food reps work the food aisle. So that day a Billjack rep happened to be working, and so Adrian and I went up and we were saying, you know, we just adopted this Boston Terrier and we'd like to get some Boston Terrier food. And he basically recommended Billjack, as well as the Billjack treats to go with the Billjack food, which is beautiful, and I absolutely love that about him. But we did get a very, very high grain containing food for Roscoe, but we just took that food home, and I believe it was beef and corn, and we fed it to Roscoe, and we thought that, you know, everything was going to be just fine. But everything wasn't fine with Roscoe. He was always very itchy. His skin was extremely dry. He was always kicking at himself. And so a very common thing for us would be that we would be sitting in the basement, watching some TV. He would be upstairs and you'd hear, that's him kicking his sides upstairs, and you could hear it all the way through the floor. And so he was really kicking himself raw. He kicked out all of the hair on his sides. He lost all of the hair on his whole rear end and tail. It was just like a naked butt dog. And by this time we had realized, well, maybe it's something that he's eating. And so we kind of had switched from brand A to brand B to brand C, trying to find something that would work.
Not to mention the gas.
The gas was pretty incredible as well, that he had. So not only was it not super fun for him, it was really not super fun for us. And that's why I do know, if you've got a customer who comes in with a Boston, a Bulldog, any of those short-faced, squashed-up body breeds, I know that switching to our food will improve everyone's quality of life in the house. And so what had happened is we went to the Backer Trade Show in Atlantic City. This was probably almost a year before we opened the store, and this was like our real push to find out if we were going to do this, what would we carry, what would we do. We talked to everybody at the show. We talked to everyone from like a Nature's Variety and Stella Chewy's to a Eukanuba Pedigree. We talked to everyone, took their information, and really from that I think that we got a big picture of the pet industry, and it really helped crystallize for us what Two Bostons was going to be about. One of the things that happened when we were there, we went to the Halo booth, and Andy Brown, who was the original owner of Halo, was at the booth, and basically she said, give me 30 days. Feed your dog nothing but my food for 30 days. And if your dog is not doing better, then I will buy all the food back. We kind of looked at each other and we're like, we've got nothing to lose on this deal. So that's what we did. We bought the Spots Stew canned food. We brought that home. We put Roscoe on it. It was like a home stew. He absolutely went crazy for it. He just absolutely loved it. Gobbled it up. Probably 2 weeks after that, we were down in the basement and we listened. And there was none of that thumping action going on. So we were like, oh my God, you know, Roscoe's not scratching himself. And after about a month, the hair actually was starting to regrow a little bit on his backside. And so at that point, you know, we were sitting there going, miracle food, you know, we thought we'd figured it out. Now, knowing what I know now, it wasn't that Halo was miracle food, but what had happened is I had switched a diet that was not very appropriate given the types of grains that it had in it and the fact that it did have grains in it, and we switched it towards, while it was, you know, a cooked and canned type food, we switched to something that was more biologically appropriate than what he had, and suddenly it made all the difference in the world. Now, the cool thing is that because we learned this with Roscoe, we were able to help other dogs. And as we get additional dogs ourselves, so when we got Beamer, he was just in a very, very bad place digestively. And I could see where, you know, some people would have even given him back based on just how funky his stomach was. And so the cool thing is that we've learned all of these things, and the reason why I think it's important for you to hear our history in that is to remember that every customer that comes in the store has this learning process that they are on. And it's our job with food not to bully people and not to pressure people, but it's to bring them along this learning process. Because even if you're dealing with someone who's having end-of-life issues with one dog, they are going to take that knowledge about appropriate foods and what they should be feeding, and then on their next dog, that puppy that comes in, is going to be on good food for life. So that's what I think makes us so passionate about it, and that's what I think too when you consider that Two Bostons opened largely as a pet boutique with no food, save for the spot stew, because there was a little bit there in case we needed to feed our dogs, to what it evolved to over the time. It definitely does have more of a wellness center and a high quality nutrition component to our store. So I think that that's something that is really in our store DNA right now, and is also very, very vitally important for what we're looking to go with in the future.